Okay, so what are some types of firewalls? Well, we have packet filtering firewalls, and packet filtering allows or blocks traffic based upon a specific port. HTTP traffic, which is web traffic, typically comes on over port 80. FTP traffic, or file transport protocol, that is generated on port 21 typically. All right, so you can say, okay, allow web traffic but don't allow FTP, or allow DNS but don't allow, whatever, NetBIOS or time lookups, or whatever the case may be. You can break it down by port by port by port and get very specific. All right, so there's not a lot of intelligence there. It simply looks at the port, and then it will allow or block at that point. Next, we have a proxy firewall. Now, a proxy firewall is going to be dual homed, which means it's going to have two network interfaces, typically one on each network. So let's say, for instance, you have an internal and an external, or two internal networks that you want to segment one from the other. It's going to have an interface on both. Now, in most major corporate environments, that's a no-no. They won't allow typically dual-homed machines, specifically because they kind of bypass the firewall functionality. They span two networks, so that's typically a no-no. But in a proxy firewall situation, and that is in fact your firewall, then you're going to have an interface on both networks, or one or more networks, I should say. Okay, and that's going to segment internal users from the outside world. And again, it can mask the IP address using something called NAT, which is Network Address Translation. So that's going to give an added layer of security, because the outside world won't know who's communicating. All they will see is the address of the proxy firewall. And the proxy can also cache requests to improve perceived speed. So if you have multiple users that are accessing the same website, as an example, well, the first person to access that website or that URL will actually go out and pull it down from the World Wide Web, or from whatever resource it's getting it from. Subsequent requests, as long as it's still sitting in cache, will get that information directly from the proxy, rather than having to go back out to the web or back out to the resource. So it gives the perception that things are faster, that your network all of a sudden is more responsive. The next type is stateful packet inspection firewalls. Now, SPI, or stateful packet inspection, examines the packet and keeps a packet table of every communication channel. So in other words, it's got more intelligence than a simple packet filtering. It actually does a deeper dive. It examines what's inside, and SPI tracks the entire conversation. So it gives you an increased level of security, because it only allows packets from a known active connection. So in other words, if someone's trying to kind of spoof or kind of jump in the middle of a connection, SPI understands that, hey, wait a minute, I don't know who this is from. I haven't seen this before. This is kind of in the middle of this conversation. There's no initiation. There's no back and forth to actually establish the connection. This just came out of nowhere. So I'm going to drop that. So it gives you that added layer of security. It's better than simple packet filtering, which only looks at the current packet. However, it is possible to attack by overloading the state table. So there are, for every, as we go through these different things, just keep in mind, nothing is foolproof. It's a never-ending battle. That's why we're all employed, and that's why we eventually make the big bucks. But it goes on and on and on. So, history lesson for you. Checkpoint software, you may or may not have heard of that company before, but Checkpoint, they introduced the concept of stateful packet inspection firewalls, in the use of its Firewall 1 software, or product rather, which was introduced in 1994. So it's been around for quite a while.